It was supposed to be just another high-energy filming day for the cast of Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta, but no one could have predicted the nuclear-level meltdown that was about to erupt. Cameras were rolling, producers were smiling, and the crew was relaxed until a single stare across the set turned into a fiery explosion of words, shoves, and accusations so volatile, security had to rush in. Rasheeda, the queen of calm and class, completely snapped, and Jasmine, ever one to back down, clapped back with a fury no one saw coming. Within seconds, extensions were flying, mics were torn off, and the air turned electric with betrayal and years of buried rage. Sources on set say it started with a single comment off script, unscripted, and utterly unforgivable. Rasheeda, visibly trembling with rage, accused Jasmine of playing victim for views, while Jasmine fired back, calling Rasheeda a controlling liar who's hiding behind a fake marriage. And then, chaos, real, raw, messy chaos. Fans are shocked, producers are panicking, and social media is in a meltdown trying to piece together what really happened behind those velvet ropes of VH1 drama. Was this the fight that finally tore the cast apart for good? Who was really to blame? And did Kirk step in or sit back and watch the storm he created destroy two women who once tried to forgive him? Buckle up, because the tea is scalding and the footage you're about to hear will leave you speechless. This is no storyline. This is war and nobody's playing nice. It all started with a simple call time, 10 a.m., Studio B, downtown Atlanta. The energy was tense but familiar. Everyone knew Rasheeda and Jasmine hadn't exactly buried the hatchet, but nobody expected things to spiral the way they did. From the moment Jasmine stepped onto set, with her sleek ponytail, fierce heels, and an attitude sharpened like a blade, the entire room held its breath. Rasheeda was already there, sitting poised in her chair, going over her lines, but her eyes never left Jasmine. There was something unreadable behind that stare, something cold, calculating, and deeply wounded. Crew members whispered that production had deliberately placed their segments back to back, hoping for a little friction, a spark for the storyline. But what they got was an all-out firestorm. It began subtly. Jasmine made a comment under her breath about some people needing to stay retired, and Rasheeda didn't even flinch at first. But when Jasmine laughed, too loud, too intentionally, something in Rasheeda's chest cracked open. She rose, calmly at first, walking across the room with slow, purposeful steps. "You want to try that again?" Rasheeda asked, voice dangerously low. Jasmine, who had clearly come prepared for this moment, didn't miss a beat. "I said what I said," she snapped, turning to face her. "You think you can ice me out of this show forever? I've earned my place here, just like you." That's when the air changed. Crew members glanced nervously toward the producers, unsure if this was still a scene or if the drama had slipped out of fiction and into full-blown reality. Rasheeda stepped closer, their faces now inches apart. "You earned nothing but sympathy," she hissed. "Sympathy for sleeping with another woman's husband and acting like you're the one who got betrayed." A collective gasp rippled through the set. Cameras kept rolling. This was gold, and everyone knew it. But what happened next wasn't just for ratings. Jasmine's smile disappeared. Her voice trembled, but not with fear. With fury. "Don't act like you were ever a victim. You knew what Kirk was doing. You just didn't want to deal with the truth. You needed someone to blame, and I was an easy target." Rasheeda's nostrils flared. "Girl, don't play yourself. You were no accident. You came for what was mine, and now you want pity because the man who cheated on me ended up cheating on you, too." Jasmine's face turned crimson. She took a step forward, shoving Rasheeda slightly with her shoulder. That was the spark. The next 5 seconds felt like slow motion. Rasheeda's hand shot out, grabbing Jasmine's arm. Jasmine swung back, and the two women were locked in a chaotic scuffle before security could even reach them. Chairs clattered to the floor. A water bottle was flung across the room. Someone screamed. Someone else shouted, "Cut the feed," but the cameras didn't cut. They zoomed in. This was the confrontation fans had speculated about for years and censored, raw, and heartbreaking. The emotional weight of a decade of betrayal and denial collapsed in that single moment. And for the first time, Rasheeda let the world see her pain without the filter of strength. "You ruined my family," she yelled through tears, still being held back by two crew members. "You destroyed my marriage." Jasmine, hair now falling from her ponytail, stood breathing heavily, voice crack in. "No, he destroyed your marriage. I was just the consequence you couldn't ignore." Suddenly, Kirk appeared. Yes, Kirk storming onto the set, caught completely off guard. He had been shooting in the adjacent studio, clueless to the chaos unfolding just feet away. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted, rushing toward the scene. But neither woman looked at him. They were locked in their own war, one that had nothing to do with him anymore. The set was now in ruins, emotional and physical. Makeup artists stood frozen. The director was pale. Someone called for a break. But the damage had already been done. Rasheeda sat down slowly, shaking, whispering to herself, "I shouldn't have come today." Jasmine picked up her mic pack from the floor and tossed it onto the makeup table. "If you want me gone, say it, but don't pretend I didn't matter." Not to him. And not to this story. Kirk stood between them now, visibly rattled. For once, the smooth talker had no words. His eyes darted between the women he had hurt, his silence louder than any excuse he could offer. Finally, Jasmine turned and walked out of frame. Rasheeda didn't stop her. She just sat there, hollowed out by the confrontation, her hands trembling, as she wiped a tear from her cheek. In the corner, someone whispered, "This season's gonna break records." But no one smiled. Because what had just happened wasn't entertainment. It was real. Too real, and it was far from over. The aftermath of the confrontation wasn't silence, it was chaos. Even after Jasmine had stormed off set, the room buzzed with whispers, camera flashes, and hushed panic among producers. Rasheeda stayed in her chair, refusing help, her eyes glassy but burning. A makeup artist tried to approach her with tissues, but she waved them off. "I'm fine," she said coldly. "Just keep rolling." The producers were torn. Part of them wanted to de-escalate, the other part knew this was the content that would break the internet. In another room, Jasmine had locked herself in a dressing suite, screaming into her phone. No one knew who she was talking to, but fragments of her sentences echoed through the corridor. "She thinks she's untouchable. I'm done letting her rewrite history. If they cut me out this time, I swear I'll burn this whole thing down." Meanwhile, Kirk was caught in the middle again. Only this time, it wasn't about defending his actions, but about choosing where he stood. He tried knocking on Jasmine's door. No response. He then returned to Rasheeda, who was now mic'd again and ready to speak. "You still here?" she asked without looking up. "You think I wasn't gonna come?" he replied, sitting across from her. She laughed bitterly. "You always come just in time to watch everything fall apart." Kirk sighed. "I didn't know they were gonna put y'all on back-to-back segments. Don't act brand new," she snapped. "You knew what they wanted. You just hoped I'd keep quiet to protect your legacy." Kirk leaned forward. "Rasheeda, I didn't ask for this drama. I've tried to make peace with both of y'all. I've apologized 100 times. Peace," she repeated. "You want peace? Then why are you still talking to her?" That was the moment the cameras caught it, the raw vulnerability behind her anger. She wasn't just mad, she was still hurt. Years later, after therapy, interviews, apologies, Instagram statements, and family meetings, she was still bleeding. And Jasmine wasn't just a ghost from the past. She was an active wound. At that very moment, Jasmine threw open the dressing room door and walked straight back onto the set. Mic already clipped back on. "No more hiding," she said flatly. "You want to talk? Let's talk." Rasheeda stood up slowly. "You don't call the shots here." "Neither do you," Jasmine snapped back. "You've spent years acting like the victim when we both know Kirk was cheating long before I came along, and that makes what you did okay." Rasheeda countered, voice rising. "You knew he was married. You knew he had kids. And he still came to me," Jasmine shouted. "Stop pretending I lured him. He pursued me. He lied to me just like he lied to you. And you're mad because I didn't disappear when it got inconvenient." Kirk tried to step in. "Okay, stop. Both of you." Neither woman moved. "You don't get to silence us now," Jasmine said, her voice trembling again. "You had your moment. Now I'm taking mine." Rasheeda rolled her eyes. "You've been taking your moment for 6 years. Ain't you tired?" "I'm tired of being painted like a homewrecker when I was just one of many," Jasmine fired back. "You want the truth? You should thank me, because if I hadn't spoken up, you'd still be living in denial." The room went still. Even the producers didn't know how to handle what was unfolding. It wasn't just reality TV anymore. This was a woman tearing down the fantasy of forgiveness, of moving on, of marital redemption. "I stayed because I believed in my family," Rasheeda said, her voice suddenly low, raw. "I stayed because I thought love could heal things. And you," she pointed at Jasmine, "you tried to turn my husband into your savior. But he was broken. He broke both of us. Jasmine didn't argue. For the first time, her lips pressed shut, and her eyes welled up. You think I didn't love him? She whispered. You think I didn't hope he'd choose me? But he didn't. He left me with a child and a mess I never asked for. And you, she stepped closer, you got to act like you won. But we both lost. Rasheeda looked at her, the rage now mixed with something else, understanding, maybe, even pity. He took our choices, Rasheeda said. He made us enemies. Jasmine nodded. And we played along. The silence between them stretched. Kirk stood there, for once speechless, the full weight of his decisions crashing down around him. The producers didn't cut the cameras. The crew didn't move, because no one wanted to interrupt what might have been the most honest moment the franchise had ever captured, but honesty doesn't heal overnight. And just when it seemed like things might calm down, Rasheeda said something that reignited the flame. So what now? You want to come back full-time? Be part of the cast again? Jasmine raised her chin. I want what I deserve. I want my voice heard. And I'm done letting you play gatekeeper. Rasheeda scoffed. You're still chasing relevance. Jasmine didn't flinch. And you're still pretending your life is perfect. But your man still calls me. That was it. Rasheeda lunged not violently, not with fists, but with words sharp enough to cut. Liar, she hissed. You're lying. Jasmine held her ground. Check his call log. Kirk blanched. Jasmine don't. Rasheeda turned to him slowly, betrayal blooming all over again in her eyes. Are you serious? After everything, Kirk looked trapped. It's not what you think. She called me. About the kid. About support. Don't lie for him. Jasmine whispered. Tell her how many times you called me after that last reunion. Rasheeda took a step back, heart visibly cracking. You said you cut all ties, she said to Kirk. You looked me in the face and promised. I did, he stammered. Mostly, I only. Enough, Rasheeda said. We're done talking. All of us. And just like that, she removed her mic, handed it to the crew, and walked off set, leaving behind a stunned cast, a shattered illusion, and cameras still rolling, but no one moved. Not yet, because what had just unfolded wasn't a finale, it was just the beginning. Backstage, the silence following Rasheeda's stormy exit was more deafening than the argument itself. No one knew where to look, what to say, or even whether to breathe too loud. Jasmine remained in the center of the set, her body trembling from adrenaline, her jaw clenched tightly to prevent herself from cracking. She hadn't expected to go that far, but once the truth started pouring out, she couldn't stop. Her pride wouldn't let her. The pain of being silenced, erased, and vilified for years had finally detonated. And though her hands weren't bloody, the damage she'd left behind felt irreversible. Kirk just stood there, dumbfounded. The man who once juggled women like a magician now found himself completely stripped, no swagger, no defense, no rehearsed charm, just a father, a husband, and a man caught red-handed in another web of emotional landmines. The producers, sensing the depth of the fallout, huddled behind monitors trying to decide what came next. Should they follow Rasheeda? Should they cut Jasmine's mic? Or was this still just good television? A crew member whispered. This isn't even TV anymore. This is real life. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was pacing back and forth in the dressing room hallway, gripping her phone so tightly, her knuckles were white. Her publicist was on the line, panicking. Do not say anything on camera right now. Don't give them anything. Let us handle the narrative. But Rasheeda wasn't listening. She was staring at her reflection in a hallway mirror, mascara smudged, lips trembling, repeating to herself, why did I come back? Why did I come back? Because deep down, she knew this wasn't just about ratings. She'd agreed to this season, hoping to close a chapter, to show fans she was healed, that she had triumphed over the storm. But healing doesn't come with cameras, and peace doesn't happen on a soundstage. Then came the unexpected twist. Jasmine, still wired up, didn't leave. Instead, she requested a solo interview segment, right then and there. No makeup, no glam, no retakes, just her, the truth, and a lens. Sitting down on the infamous confession couch, she looked dead into the camera and said, I know people hate me. I know the world made up its mind a long time ago. But I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to be heard. The producer behind the camera swallowed hard, nodded, and gave her the go. Jasmine took a deep breath. I didn't ruin Rasheeda's marriage. I walked into a situation where I thought I was being loved. I thought I was special. Kirk told me lies I wanted to believe. And when everything came out, I paid the price while he got to be the changed man. But where was my redemption arc? Where was my healing? The emotion cracked her voice. I lost friends, I lost credibility, I lost myself. But guess what? I raised my child. I showed up. I fought through the hate. And I'm not going anywhere. If telling the truth makes me the villain, so be it. But I'm done being quiet. The crew was frozen. Not a soul blinked. Even the camera operator had tears in their eyes. No one had expected Jasmine, the so-called side chick, to come off so brutally raw. It was a side of her the show had never shown. Back in the hallway, Rasheeda's assistant rushed in. She's giving a confessional. Right now, talking about Kirk, about you. Rasheeda rolled her eyes. Let her talk. I've had cameras on me for a decade. If words could break me, I'd be gone by now. But even as she said it, her voice wavered. This wasn't just a storyline anymore. This was a direct hit to the identity she'd spent years rebuilding. She wasn't just fighting Jasmine, she was fighting the world's perception of her marriage, her choices, her strength. Then the unthinkable happened. Kirk knocked gently on the dressing room door. Can we talk? Rasheeda opened the door slowly, arms crossed. What now? I need to tell you the truth, he said. You should have done that years ago, she replied, stone-faced. I know, he said. But I kept thinking, if I admitted how many times I messed up, you'd finally walk away, and I didn't want that. Not because I deserved you, but because you were the only good thing I had left. She scoffed. You're not doing this now. Not on camera. Not like this. Then tell them to cut, he said, his voice breaking. But I'm done hiding. She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in years, she didn't see the smooth-talking man who could spin anything. She saw a man unraveling. You still love her? She asked quietly. No, he said immediately, but I did, and that's the truth. Rasheeda blinked. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was real. And you still love me? She asked, softer now. Always, he whispered, but I don't deserve you. And if you walk out of here and never speak to me again, I won't blame you. A long pause. Her face hardened, again, but her voice cracked. We built an empire, a family, and you broke it. I know, he said. Then let me go, she whispered. Kirk looked down. If that's what you want. Rasheeda nodded. It's not about what I want anymore, it's about what I need. Back on the set, Jasmine finished her confessional and stood up, wiping away a single tear. Let them judge me. But at least now, I'm standing in my truth. The crew clapped genuinely. Even the assistant director had to take a walk to collect themselves. Producers had already begun cutting teasers, knowing this would be the moment that redefined the show forever. But one question remained unanswered. Would Rasheeda come back to finish filming? Would this be her final goodbye? Or would she rise from the ashes stronger than ever? One thing was clear. The love triangle that had haunted love and hip-hop for nearly a decade had finally exploded. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. The tension didn't end with the outbursts or the tears. It settled into the walls, into the cameras, into every whispered phone call and frantic text message exchanged in the hours that followed. Rasheeda had vanished. Her team escorted her to a black SUV waiting outside the studio, and though she left without a word, everyone knew the weight of what had happened hadn't left her shoulders, it had followed her home. The studio was a mess, not physically, but emotionally. The energy was fractured. Jasmine had delivered a confession no one could ignore. Kirk had admitted more than he ever had on camera, and Rasheeda, she had walked away, not as a victim or a villain, but as a woman who had finally reached her threshold. But the real twist wasn't in what was said on camera, it was what came after. Hours after the explosive fight, social media was on fire. Hashtags like hashtag RASHEEDA walks out and hashtag Jasmine Unfiltered trended on Twitter within minutes. Fans were divided, some rallying behind Rasheeda's poise and pain, others praising Jasmine for her unfiltered honesty. But the biggest surprise came from an unexpected source. Carter, Jasmine and Kirk's son, now a precocious 9-year-old, was spotted with Kirk the day after the chaos. Paparazzi snapped pictures of the father-son duo at a local park, and while that may have seemed innocent, fans were quick to notice one thing. Kirk was on the phone talking to Rasheeda. Insiders say it wasn't just a quick check-in, it was a 2-hour phone call, filled with heavy pauses and emotional weight. According to sources close to production, Rasheeda didn't yell, she didn't cry, she just listened, and for someone who had held her pain so close for so long, that in itself was monumental. But the drama didn't stop there. That same evening, Jasmine took to Instagram Live. Without glam, without filters. Sitting on the floor of her apartment, she addressed her followers directly. "I know y'all got questions," she began, her voice calm but tense. "Yes, what happened on set was real. No, I didn't plan to go off. But when someone's been writing your story for you for years, eventually, you gotta snatch the pen back." Thousands tuned in. Comments flooded the screen. Some cruel, some supportive, but Jasmine kept her composure. She talked about co-parenting, about the loneliness of being in the public eye only when she was useful for conflict, and about her desire to move forward, not just as a former mistress, not as a cast member, but as a mother and a woman trying to reclaim her life. Then came the unexpected. A viewer asked, "Would you ever sit down with Rasheeda privately? No cameras, no producers, just truth." Jasmine paused, then nodded. "If she's willing, I'm willing. But not for the show. For us." Word of the live spread like wildfire, and producers were stunned. This wasn't a staged reconciliation. This was real olive branch energy, and they weren't sure whether to intervene or let it play out off camera. Meanwhile, back at home, Rasheeda was scrolling through her phone, reading the fan reactions. Her emotions were all over the place. Some messages blamed her for staying too long. Others praised her strength. But the one that stuck out most was a DM from someone anonymous. "Sometimes peace means walking away. But sometimes, it means having one last conversation." The words hit her like a wave. She stared at them for a long time, then turned to her bedroom window, watching the Atlanta skyline blur through her tears. She didn't know if she had one more conversation left in her, but if she did, it had to be on her terms. The following morning, production received a cryptic text from Rasheeda's camp. "She's not done, but she has conditions." The list came shortly after. No cameras, no producers, no stylists, just a room, one camera operator, and Jasmine. And just like that, a private summit was scheduled off the record, off the script, and potentially off the rails. It happened 3 days later in a quiet studio room on the outskirts of town. No glam team, no handlers, just Rasheeda and Jasmine, sitting across from each other with a single coffee table between them. The camera rolled silently in the background. Per Rasheeda's one request, "Capture it, but don't interfere." Jasmine was the first to speak. "I didn't come here to fight." Rasheeda nodded. "Neither did I." The silence that followed was heavy, but not hostile. It was reflective. "You really loved him?" Rasheeda asked. "I thought I did," Jasmine answered. "But now, I think I just needed someone to make me feel worth something." Rasheeda's eyes softened. "I stayed with him because I was afraid of starting over. I thought leaving would mean I failed." "You didn't fail," Jasmine said. "You fought harder than anyone I know." They sat in stillness for a while. For once, there was no audience to play to, no narrative to control. Just two women, bound by hurt, slowly acknowledging that they were both collateral damage in someone else's choices. "Do you regret it?" Rasheeda finally asked. Jasmine's eyes glistened. "Every day, not just because of what happened to you, but because of what I lost in myself." Rasheeda nodded, her voice just above a whisper. "Me too. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was understanding. And that was more powerful than any scripted apology." As they both stood to leave, Jasmine extended her hand. Rasheeda hesitated, then took it, and for a brief second, the noise stopped, the fan speculation, the producer manipulation, the years of resentment. In that tiny studio room, there was a flicker of something more honest than anything reality TV had ever captured. Two women, realizing they had more in common than they ever wanted to admit. But peace, even in its smallest form, is radical. And the story wasn't over, not by a long shot. Because just outside that room, the cameras were waiting again. And what the world would see next would depend entirely on whether these women decided to keep that peace or use it as leverage in a world that profits from their pain. And so it began again, not with shouting or scandal, but with the sound of doors opening. Rasheeda and Jasmine walked out of that private room, side by side, not smiling, not holding hands, but with the kind of mutual nod only to women who've been through hell and back can give each other. Producers were stunned. Their cameras were ready for a second round of chaos. They expected fury, fireworks, or at the very least, Rasheeda's signature cold shoulder. But what they saw instead was restraint, an unspoken alliance formed not out of love, but out of exhaustion. Exhaustion from carrying the burden of a broken man's choices. From living life framed by headlines, confessionals, and judgmental viewers. From performing pain for cameras that never stop rolling. Within 24 hours, the footage from that private sit-down was leaked, though no one knew by whom. Some say it was a rogue crew member. Others whispered it was a PR move, orchestrated by Kirk himself to soften the blow. But however it happened, it spread like wildfire. The clip was short, just Rasheeda and Jasmine sitting quietly, exchanging truths with heavy eyes, but it was enough. Blogs exploded. Headlines read, "Enemies no more." And Rasheeda and Jasmine finally speaking, "It's not what you think." Fan reactions were immediate and visceral. Some called it fake. Others called it healing. But one thing was clear: no one saw it coming. For the first time in years, Jasmine wasn't being dragged online. In fact, many fans praised her bravery, her honesty, her willingness to show vulnerability. But Rasheeda, she was split down the middle. Half the audience stood by her as a symbol of strength and grace. The other half asked the painful question, why didn't she leave sooner? The backlash wasn't new. Rasheeda had endured years of criticism for standing by her man. But this time, it hit different. Because now the world had seen how deeply she had suffered, how hard she had tried, and how much she had lost in the process. Back at home, Kirk was scrambling. He had stayed silent during the past few days, hoping the storm would pass. But now, seeing the world shift toward empathy for just away from him, he knew he had to act. He released a statement online. It read, "I made mistakes. Deep ones. I hurt 2 women who didn't deserve the pain I caused. I don't expect forgiveness. I only hope that someday, the truth of who I'm trying to become matters more than the man I was." Comments were ruthless. Some accused him of damage control. Others said it was too little, too late. But one comment stood out, pinned at the top by Rasheeda herself. "Healing doesn't erase the past, but maybe it makes the future possible." It was the closest thing to closure she had ever offered him, publicly and, perhaps, the final nail in the coffin of their televised love story. Meanwhile, Jasmine's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Offers poured in from podcasts, networks, book publishers. Everyone wanted her to tell her side, but she wasn't interested in monetizing the moment. She wanted space. Space to co-parent, to breathe, to finally live a life that wasn't overshadowed by someone else's narrative. Still, the producers weren't done. Sensing a ratings goldmine, they pitched a special 2-part reunion episode, one that would explore the aftermath of the fight, the private conversation, and what came next. Both women initially declined, but then came the twist. A letter, handwritten, from Jasmine to Rasheeda, delivered in a sealed envelope by a producer. Inside, it simply read, "Thank you for showing up. That's all I ever wanted from him, from the world, from you. Just to be seen as a human being, not a mistake." Rasheeda read the letter in silence. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel rage. She felt freedom. The next morning, she called production. "I'll do the reunion, but only if it's live. No edits, no scripts, the real us." Jasmine agreed. The date was set. The promo dropped days later. Rasheeda and Jasmine, unfiltered. Fans lost their minds. Ticket sales for the studio audience sold out in under 30 minutes. Social media flooded with predictions. Would they fight again? Would Rasheeda finally walk away from Kirk for good? Would Jasmine reveal more secrets? The night of the taping arrived, and the energy inside the studio was electric. The lights dimmed, the theme music rolled, and then, silence. Rasheeda walked onto the stage first, alone. No glam squad, no entourage, just her, in a simple black dress, confident.com. Then came Jasmine wearing white. Symbolic, probably. She took her seat beside Rasheeda, and for a moment, the entire world held its breath. The host, clearly aware of the stakes, didn't waste time. "Ladies, the world watched a moment between you two that none of us expected. What made you decide to come together?" Rasheeda answered first. "Because I'm tired of letting pain control me. I didn't come here to relive the past. I came here to release it." Jasmine nodded. "Same. I've been angry for years. Not just at you but at myself. At how I let myself be defined by someone else's choices. That conversation we had off camera, that was the realest thing I've done in a decade." The host leaned in. "So, where do you two stand now?" They both looked at each other. Rasheeda spoke softly. "We're not friends, but we're no longer enemies. We're just women. trying to move forward, and the crowd. They erupted cheers, tears, even a few shocked gasps. But it wasn't over yet. The host turned to Kirk, who was seated backstage, watching everything unfold on a monitor. "Would you like to join us?" he asked. The crowd buzzed. Kirk stepped onto the stage slowly, visibly nervous. He greeted both women cautiously. Jasmine barely looked at him. Rasheeda nodded, but with no warmth. The host didn't waste time. "Kirk, what do you say to these women today, after everything?" Kirk took a deep breath. "I don't deserve a seat here, but I'm grateful you both gave me one. I hurt you both, and nothing I say can fix that, but I'm here, owning every piece of it." Jasmine shook her head, not in disagreement, but in disbelief. "It took you 10 years to say that." Kirk nodded. "I know, and I'll spend the next 10 trying to make peace with it." The reunion ended not with a bang, but with a sigh of relief. 3 lives, 3 wounds, 1 shared history finally faced. No fake hugs, no forced forgiveness, just realness, raw, messy, and deeply human. And as the lights dimmed and credits rolled, fans took to social media to say one thing over and over again: this wasn't reality TV. This was reality, and in that truth, both Rasheeda and Jasmine found something neither of them had ever had in this franchise, and perhaps, at long last. Release. In the days that followed the explosive reunion, the world couldn't stop talking. It wasn't just entertainment anymore, it had become a cultural moment. Blogs, vlogs, morning shows, and think pieces dissected every glance, every word, every micro-expression from Rasheeda and Jasmine. But while the internet obsessed over their onstage interaction, the real story was what happened after the lights went off, when the cameras stopped rolling, and the audience went home. Rasheeda returned to her hotel room in downtown Atlanta with her team trailing quietly behind her. Her phone had been buzzing non-stop, calls from friends, industry insiders, brands suddenly offering deals, and even messages from fans who had once criticized her harshly but were now apologizing. They said things like, "I judged you. I didn't see your pain, and thank you for showing us what real strength looks like." But instead of celebrating, Rasheeda sat quietly at the edge of the bed, scrolling through old photos of her and Kirk, of their family, of the early seasons when life was simpler and the betrayal hadn't yet become a public storyline. Her assistant finally spoke. "You changed the whole narrative tonight." Rasheeda looked up, her eyes tired but clear. "Did I? Or did I just finally stop playing along?" Elsewhere in the city, Jasmine sat in her living room, her son asleep in the next room, and a cup of untouched tea cooling on the coffee table. The reunion had left her emotionally raw, but strangely lighter. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for a text from Kirk. She wasn't refreshing her Instagram to see if she was being dragged or praised. She was just still. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Just 5 words. "I'm proud of you, baby." Jasmine stared at the message for a full minute before the tears finally came. Because as loud as the show was, her real life had often been silent, alone, judged, and tonight, she had finally spoken, not just for herself but for every woman who had been discarded, blamed, and left holding someone else's consequences. The production team, now fully aware they had captured lightning in a bottle, immediately began planning follow-up specials. Where are they now? Teasers were in the works. Fan polls popped up everywhere. Should Jasmine get her own spin-off? Should Rasheeda executive produce a docuseries about healing from betrayal? Even The Real and Good Morning America requested appearances. But both women surprisingly said no, not yet, not for clicks. They had finally reclaimed their power, and they weren't about to give it away again for cheap sound. Meanwhile, Kirk vanished. He deactivated his Instagram, skipped scheduled interviews. Sources close to him said he was reevaluating everything. Rumors swirled about him, seeking counseling, not for show, but for real. No one could confirm it, but fans noticed something strange. He didn't try to defend himself this time. He didn't run to the blogs or release a slick video with a soft piano background. He was silent, and maybe that was his way of finally stepping aside. But the drama wasn't entirely over. 1 week later, a photo leaked. Rasheeda and Jasmine at a cafe, no cameras, no crew, just 2 women and 2 iced coffees. The internet exploded. Was this the start of a friendship? A publicity stunt? Or had something truly changed between them? Neither woman posted the photo. Neither commented. But insiders said the meeting was real and longer than expected. Witnesses claimed they laughed, a little, and cried. A lot. It wasn't about forgiveness, one source shared. It was about finally being seen by the one person who could understand. The moment wasn't televised, and that made it more powerful than any reunion ever could be. And then came the letter. A handwritten letter from Rasheeda, shared as a post on her blog. It read, "I spent so many years holding on to pain like it was proof of my strength, but real strength isn't what you hold. It's what you let go of. To Jasmine, I see you now, fully. To every woman watching, your story matters. Even the messy parts. Especially the messy parts." The post went viral. Celebrities shared it. Women across the country printed it, quoted it, tattooed lines from it, and Jasmine. She didn't post a response, but 2 days later, she launched a nonprofit for single mothers navigating public scrutiny and co-parenting trauma. She called it the Mirror Room, a nod to the one moment she and Rasheeda sat across from each other, not as enemies, but as mirrors, reflecting truth, reflecting pain, reflecting growth. Love and hip-hop had always promised drama, betrayals, fights, scandals, but it had never delivered healing not like this. Rasheeda and Jasmine had done the unthinkable, not just by sharing a stage, or a room, or even a moment, but by walking away from the fight and into something radically honest. And while fans may still debate who was right or wrong, who was hurt more, who deserved more compassion, one thing became undeniable. Two women who were never supposed to see each other as anything more than rivals had become the architects of one of the most powerful storylines in reality television history, not by screaming, but by listening, not by performing, but by choosing something braver, the truth. And that, dear viewers, is where our story settles for now, but not forever. Because in the world of reality TV, the realest moments are the ones you never see coming. And if there's one thing Rasheeda and Jasmine have taught us, it's that pain doesn't always end with a fight. Sometimes it begins the journey toward something greater, something real, something revolutionary. So now we ask, where do they go from here? Rasheeda, the queen of quiet strength, has finally spoken her truth, not in anger, but in wisdom. Jasmine, once cast as the villain, stood tall in her vulnerability and refused to be silenced any longer. Together, they shattered every expectation. They broke the format. They walked away from the script and gave us something no camera could truly capture. Two women reclaiming their narratives, not for fame, not for ratings, but for themselves. And Kirk, well, maybe silence is his loudest confession yet. What we just witnessed wasn't your typical reunion. It was a reckoning, a raw, soul-bearing, no-gloss moment that blurred the line between reality TV and real life. And fans everywhere felt it. Whether you've followed their story from the beginning or just got caught up in the firestorm of this season, one thing is clear. This moment changed everything. For them, for us. For what it means to heal, to grow, to own your truth even when it's messy, complicated, and judged by millions. But now, it's your turn. What do you think? Has Jasmine finally earned her redemption? Did Rasheeda show the world what true grace looks like? Was Kirk's silence a sign of growth or just guilt? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't hold back, we want to hear your truth. And hey, if you were as shook as we were, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications, because this saga isn't over, not even close. More raw confessions, shocking twists, and emotional reckonings are on the way, and you won't want to miss a second. Until next time, stay real, stay watching, and remember, sometimes the biggest battles lead to the boldest breakthroughs.